I think one of the underappreciated facts of AI is how much it is going to make onboarding easier, right?
Yeah.
So I'll explain that and then come to Docket, and I want to touch on everything else you mentioned. See,
Okay.
today you want to move from one product to another. What is the biggest problem? It is the data migration. What structure of one data versus structure of the other application, these are slightly different. So you need to do a bunch of manual labor in between. See, LLMs are going to solve all of these problems because you can simply, not all, I wouldn't say it's a holy grail, it's a magic wand, not that way, but you can take it, you can push a ton of unstructured data into the system, and this system has the ability to now structure out that data and then edit it to this new structure and then push it very quickly in. This also means that the switching costs will reduce. So SaaS companies will have to work harder to retain their customers because to move from like pipe drive to keep is going to be faster than it is today, right? Historically, if you think about a content piece, you have to bring in, you have to, put it into a right folder structure, you have to add a right tag into it, you have to label it, you have to categorize it, you have to give it, there's a lot of things that you need to do for that content to be ready to be consumed. With LLM, what that enables us to do is there's absolutely zero tagging in the system.
Every SaaS company plays for high stakes, but what does it take to dominate the market right now? Welcome to Paris Talks Marketing, the podcast where we dive deep into the latest trends and strategies in SaaS marketing that are really working today. I'm your host, Paris, and our guests are SaaS CMOs, founders, and specialists, and we discuss one trendy topic in the industry per episode. Ready to unlock the true power of marketing strategy? In this theme, we'll explore the world of cutting-edge marketing strategies and tactics that are shaking up the SaaS industry. We'll share insights on testing new tactics and uncover the latest developments from digital landscape giants like Google, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'll also explore how AI is revolutionizing the digital landscape and transforming marketing tactics. So grab your headphones and get ready for a marketing strategy masterclass with Paris Talks Marketing. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Paris Talks Marketing. Today, I'm excited to be with Arjun Pillai, who is a serial entrepreneur with 2 successful exits, and he's currently on his 3rd venture. He's a co-founder and CEO of Docket, which is an AI platform that serves as a virtual sales engineer for AEs to close complex B2B deals. Docket takes all of your company knowledge. It's powered by state-of-the-art LLMs and creates a dynamic knowledge graph from it. It integrates deep into your AE workflows, delivers just-in-time knowledge to answer complex product questions. It fills RFPs and RFIs, and it understands where knowledge is missing to close deals. Previously, Arjun was the Chief Data Officer at ZoomInfo Technologies. So Arjun, welcome to the show.
It's great to be back, Paris. We did this, 4 years back. I think it has been a long time since then. Lots of things changed with me and also in the world out there when it comes to GTM. So I'm excited to be back on the show. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. It's wonderful to reconnect with you, and it's a small world. And you've done a lot since we last spoke, and I want to get into that. Before we talk about Docket, which is really exciting, I want to talk about your ZoomInfo experience. I think this is kind of what paved the way for you to launch Docket, a lot of the insights that you gathered. I understand that you stood up the ABM program at ZoomInfo. Can you tell us a little bit more about that experience and then how it shaped your thinking into what is now Docket?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually built the account-based marketing platform for ZoomInfo. So, when you say ABM program, people might think that I'm a practicing marketer who did like the ABM program for ZoomInfo. That was not me. That was the ZoomInfo's marketing team. My job was to, when I went into ZoomInfo, and I've known Henry, the CEO of ZoomInfo, for a little bit of time, I sold my second company to ZoomInfo, went in as the SVP of product to ZoomInfo. And ZoomInfo wanted to build out an account-based marketing platform for a few months. Either buy or build was kind of the options. And Henry asked me, hey, can you go build this out for us? I said, yeah, I can do that. I'm a startup guy. I'm good at building stuffs. So I got a team of roughly, I think, 14 to 15 people, 12 engineers, 2 product managers, 1 product marketing, like 15 people team. And I have like, what is the time? And I said about 4.5 months, I can put it out there. So, the team was awesome. We managed to take pretty much from scratch. Good thing about ZoomInfo was a lot of the pieces were there, like intent was already there. websites, which is the website-based resolution, right, which is very important when it comes to ABM campaign. That was already there. So my job was to fundamentally build the audience. Data was already there. Obviously, it's ZoomInfo. So like I had to build the audience building processes, the campaigns, the integrations, the tracking, the dashboards, and then make sure that intent and websites and all these pieces were plugging in exactly the right way that a marketer can kind of activate it. So that was the job, which we did remarkably well. In the product scaled exceedingly well. In the first few months itself, it became like a big success, and we knew that this is becoming like a pretty big deal for ZoomInfo and for the ABM market out there. We launched it February of 2022. So I joined July. I started doing this September end, and then January we rolled it out internally. February 2022 we rolled it out externally. So since then it has been a couple of years. If you look at today in the Magic Quadrant of Gartner, there is 6 Sense, Demand Base, and ZoomInfo Marketing OS within like 1.5 years, which is pretty remarkable given that, some of the other companies in the space have been existing for maybe even 10 years, have invested like hundreds of millions of dollars into the product build versus we had this small team that rolled out the product. Coupled with ZoomInfo's ability to go to market, it became an instant hit.
Yeah. Well, just talk about great timing, because you all had this foundation of data. It was one of the top databases for contacts. And then you had the intent signals. And so
Yeah,
the natural next step was ABM, I think, from there, and figuring out how to activate, to create the right kind of lists, and then to activate that, allow people to launch their ABM campaigns right off of the back of the data.
exactly. So even before I went to ZoomInfo had about a couple of thousand people who were using the ZoomInfo's data platform to activate campaigns. Right. So they had to jump through a lot of hoops. They had to export, import a lot of manual processes. So when we looked at the whole data, we knew ZoomInfo's data was super powerful for marketing use cases, but the product was meant for a sales prospecting use case. So to your point, that was the key. How do you close the chasm and make sure that there is a product that is ground up built for marketers that enable them to do whatever they want to do.
Yeah. And so very recently, I guess, after the ZoomInfo experience, you launched Docket. And tell us, what is Docket? What does it do?
Yeah. So before I tell about Docker, let me tell where it came from at ZoomInfo, right? When I rolled out Marketing OS for the world, one thing that I started to observe more and more is how much help account executives need when they sell a complex product, right? Like account executives, typically, they are not engineers. So and in today's world, a lot of the products are deeply technical in nature. And I saw how much help that they need. And this help was given to the account executives through like a sales enablement tool or like a Slack or like a sales engineer. Sales engineers are very, very expensive. They are tough to find, tough to train, tough to retain. There's no proper career progression for most of the sales engineering organizations. So it was like a big bottleneck for complex organizations when they do enterprise deals. This was the problem that I saw a little bit at ZoomInfo. I didn't fully relate to it. Not relate. It's more like I didn't fully register it at that point, but I was moving through that problem statement. I always wanted to come back and do something of my own. So when I decided to leave ZoomInfo, I didn't know what I was going to do, to be honest. But by the time I left, this thought kind of came together in me that AI was happening fast. This is a problem that I know deeply. I care deeply. So with Docket, what we are doing is, our thesis at Docket is pretty simple. Almost all the questions that your buyers are asking, they have been asked and answered before. It is somewhere in the enterprise. It is either in a Slack chat or in a call recording or in a document or in an internal training. But it's humanly impossible to pull all of that information together into one place. Even if you pull that to one place, it is impossible for you to keep it updated, because the day you put it together, it'll start getting outdated. Then finally, even if you have the most updated data together in one place, making it available to account executive just in time when they need that to close the deal is almost impossible. So these are the 3 problems that Docket is doing. So that's why we call Docket as a virtual sales engineer. Docket understands the products, the technologies, the competitive intel, data security, compliance, objections, value propositions, internal processes, and things like that. And it'll assist an account executive when the buyers are asking technical questions.
Awesome. So you kind of went from one end of the spectrum. ABM I associate with big enterprise deals,
Yeah.
but Docket is solving more for mid-market SMB sales with lower ACVs. Is that right?
Not really. It's the other way, right? So the way I think about it is when you're selling to enterprise, when your product is complex, that is when Docket will help you. If you have an existing sales engineering motion, or if you have a product that is data sheet heavy, product specification heavy, demo heavy, complex questionnaire, RFPs, that is when Docket is useful. That typically tends to be either in the enterprise deals or in some of the industries like manufacturing, life sciences, healthcare, financial services. These are all complex buying and selling process happening. And they typically end up being in the mid-market and enterprise zone, right? When the ASP, let's say, goes north of $50,000 all the way up to like millions of dollars. That is when people want to bring in sales engineers. That's when Docket is most useful. So we typically support mid-market and enterprises or companies that are selling to mid-market and enterprises.
Gotcha. Okay. And how do you position? I'm thinking of big names like Gong and Chorus, which are essentially trying to give you kind of a real time. They're trying to give your AEs and maybe sales engineers real time coaching. So a little private chat window says, I just heard the number one objection that I've heard 100 times before. Here's the answer. And you can coach that AE in real time. And that's also pulling in from the databases of the sources of company knowledge. What's different about Docket as compared to a real time coaching tool like Gong?
Yeah, very good question. So obviously Chorus is ZoomInfo's. ZoomInfo acquired Chorus. So, I was
That's
there
right.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know Chorus very well. When I think about it, right, an account executive at a very high level has two kinds of things that they need to take care to drive the deal to completion. The two things are there's the sales process and then there is the product knowledge. Sales process is all about are you following like a spin selling, challenger selling, mid-pick, medic, whatever is the sales process that you're following, the admin work that you need to do to make sure that data is getting into Salesforce. Then you kind of manage the deal, right? Keep in touch, make sure there is next step in place. What are the risk elements? Is the deal multi-threaded? There is a bunch of things that you need to do to drive the deal to completion. So that is what a set of tools are doing, including Gong and Chorus, in my opinion. So these are the deal intelligence tools. What they do is they transcribe the conversation that's happening. They identify the speaker, like speaker diarization. Then from there, they understand the risk signals included in the meeting or post the meeting through emails and calendars and things like that. They'll say things like, you have not been in touch with this company for 12 days. It is unlikely that you're going to close the deal in 15 days, things like that. So they are taking that deal data for forecasting, deal risk identification, things like that. We are on the other side. We think about the product, the details of the product, the features of the product, the competitors of the product, the pricing of the product. So those are the things that we care deeply about. Our architecture understands the products, the hierarchies of the product, the topology of the product of our customers to a point where it is literally like a sales engineer that can answer buyer questions. That is not something that Gong or Chorus is doing. We pull our data from a plethora of sources, including your existing sales enablement solutions, Google Drive, SharePoint, call recordings, Slack, knowledge bases, existing RFPs, support tickets, website, blog. So we actually take all of this and package that into, easily consumable answers for buyer questions at very high precision.
So this leads me to my next question. So you've got I see this as two primary roles. You have an account executive who is really responsible for the sales operations, the sales process, the deal velocity, making sure that that deal keeps moving down the pipeline and maintains the highest probability of success in the shortest period of time. And then you've got a sales engineer who is the person with deeper product knowledge, maybe not as tuned into the sales process, but they have to be there because if there's a technical buyer on the other end, and often there is now,
Yeah.
then you've got to have somebody who can answer those questions. Otherwise, you really hurt your chances of winning the deal. And how does it work now? Do AEs and sales engineers usually come on kind of in a tag team? Do they come on the call together, or is it more of a staggered approach? Tell me more about the role of a sales engineer in the overall process.
Yeah, let me start there, right? Sales engineers at a very high level, they do about 3 or 4 things for a deal or as a role. The first thing is they are really good at answering complex questions, whether it is technical, whether it is product related. Secondly, they are very good at asking deeper discovery questions so that they can answer some of these deeper complex questions. Then the third thing that they do is they do demos, sometimes cookie cutter demos, sometimes custom demos. Alongside answering of complex question will also mean that they are good at answering RFPs, RFIs, security questionnaire, analyst relationship questionnaire, and things like that. So those are like the 3 or 4 things that sales engineers are doing right now. And they do it by tag teaming with the account executive. Ideally, the motion that the companies want is they'll have some ratio, SE to AE. The ratios that I've seen is I've seen 1:1 all the way up to like 1:30, which means one SE for one account executive or one SE for like up to 30 account executive. That depends on the complexity of the product. So if you're selling something like a bench accounting, let's say, it's a bench, it's an accounting software. It's fairly straightforward. You don't necessarily need a sales engineer. It's a high velocity sales model, right? Probably your ratio is 1:50. But in case of like ServiceNow, for example, right, it's a super complicated product or a Workday or something like that. Then it becomes 1:1, where one account executive and a sales engineer is going side by side. Ideally, these companies would like the AEs to do the first couple of calls and then bring in the sales engineer with the discovery done, complexity taken care and things like that. And sales engineer will come with the context and then, start taking the buyers through the details. But today, to your point, what's happening is sales engineers are getting asked to be on the call right from the word go because the complexity is there right from day one. So what Docket is doing is we want to enable these account executives to kind of go into the calls, be confident that they have the answers next to them when they need it so that they can ask the discovery questions. They can, discover better, but also qualify better and then go to sales engineer and say, hey, you know what? This deal needs sales engineers. This is a complex enterprise deal. So come in. So over a period of time, we are hoping that the sales engineers, not hoping, we will make sure that the sales engineers will be able to focus on the more complex enterprise deals, while the SMB and commercial deals can be taken care just by the account executive and Docket in the short term.
Got it. Yeah. Actually, I was looking at a LinkedIn post that you posted today, and it did really well. And I'm going to refer to it now, but you ran through some back of the envelope math here. And you actually more or less proved out that below a certain level of average ACV, annual contract value, you really cannot afford to manage a large sales team anymore, particularly a large team of SDRs. And can you walk us through this problem now that just the sales, I think you mentioned in our prep meeting that there's been a big shift in the cost. I mean, the sales used to be a revenue center, but now it's actually a cost center. Can you walk us through, and it's reflected in your LinkedIn post from today, why the economics of a sales team are starting to break and maybe the ROI is getting really shaky?
Yeah. I wouldn't go as far as to say that the sales is the cost center. I think people will kill me if I do that. But the dynamics has certainly shifted, right? And this is a statistics that came out of a recent research by a venture capitalist firm, I think. So the stats go like this. Back in 2018, if you take the total number of full-time employees in a sales and marketing organization together, the percentage of quota carrying reps was 30%. So basically 30% of the total sales and marketing were account executives. That's what it meant. Now, today, that percentage is 10%, right? So there is 90% of the people who are in sales and marketing organization who are not quota carrying. These are your, SDRs, your sales engineers, your sales enablement people, your ops people, and then all the other marketing people.
You said, Arjun, the sales engineers are part of the non-quota carrying portion?
Yeah. Sales engineers
quota?
don't have a quota. Sales engineers are associated to the quota in most cases to the account executives. So they have some target that they are trying to hit, but they are not comped based on quota. These guys make 200K to 250K or 150 to 250K regardless of what happens on the deals. The account SDRs also have some level of quota, but that is not tied to the revenue in most cases. It is tied to the meetings or opportunities. There are very few companies who have been able to manage SDR comp in relation to the ACV closed. That's very difficult because SDRs don't typically control the outcome of the meeting. Account executives do, right? So account executives are the folks who are completely comped on the outcome of the meeting. And the percentage of the quota carrying people have come down from 30% to 10%. And people think about, hey, where is the GTM efficiency gone? This is where it is gone. Earlier, there were 30% people who were generating revenue for the revenue organization and for the rest of the company. Today, it is only 10%. Now, this 10% is asked to pull the weight of the rest of the 90% and of the larger company. That won't work. You just cannot get to the kind of GTM efficiency that you are looking for with that kind of a math. And we can get into, if you're interested, I want to take a pause here, but I can also get into the details of why that happened.
I have a theory about why that happened, because on the one hand, it looks kind of scary because let's just say your whole growth team, marketing and sales appears to be getting more expensive on a fixed cost basis. And the cost is shifting from variable cost or performance-based commission compensation to fixed salary compensation. So you're going from variable expense to fixed expense. That's always a kind of a scary transition for a lot of companies. Usually most companies would like to have as many costs as possible, variable and proportional to their revenue. That's certainly a good business model. But I think that what may be happening, and you can tell me what you think about this, is that it's a reflection of the way people buy SaaS now as opposed to 10 years ago or 15 years ago. The level of sophistication is so much higher that you need fewer discovery calls. You need less actual time selling. An educated buyer comes in who has been on G2 and Trust Radius, and they've done their homework, and they say, look, I need something. Let me give an example of something I was looking at recently, call tracking software. So I'm thinking I need call tracking software that can do a good job with multi-channel attribution. Now that's a really tough one. And I've whittled it down. I've done my research and I've whittled it down to 3 players. I need to go into the demo call. And my first question is going to be, guys, don't give me a rundown of all the bells and whistles. Your product is great. Please tell me how you solve for multi-touch attribution across offline, online, and phone calls. And the guy that answers, of the person who can answer that the best, is going to win my business. So the sales cycle has shrunk because of the more educated buyer. And therefore, if you need less time spent on that, then you need fewer quota carrying reps. That's my theory. Do you have something else to add?
Yeah, there are certainly pieces to that are very key to the puzzle, and I fully 100% agree with. And there are certain pieces that I don't fully agree with. The places which I don't agree with is I don't think the variable comp has shifted significantly. The account executive, the way in which the AEs have been comped have been pretty much the same in terms of percentages. And by the way, the stats that I said is about full-time employees. Salary amount, cash is not counted in that, right? So I think, but the other thing that you mentioned about the complexity of the sale is probably the most important thing there. I think there are 3 reasons why the quota carrying people went from 30% to 10%. The first reason is that there was a ZIRP, a zero interest rate policy after, like the crash in 2008, 2009. We were on such a big bull run. Money was available very easily. And then COVID happened. And because of COVID, there was more money pumped into the economy. Basically, money was free. Investors were pumping a ton of money into the ecosystem. And so like everybody can hire, right? Everybody's just trying to grow. So everybody overhired. And as a result, there are a lot of people in the revenue organization. That's the first reason. The second reason is what you mentioned, where the complexity, people have a lot more knowledge about the products. So right from the first call, they are asking very sophisticated questions. So that obviously makes it difficult because now you need to have a sales engineer on the call, right? That sophistication. On the first call itself, you need, because you are asking, hey, how do you handle multi-touch attribution? How many A's will be able to handle that question? There's very little, right? You need to have an SE or like a product expert who understands what is multi-touch attribution and then give you that answer. The highly tenured A's might be able to do, but they'll be like a small percentage. So for most of the A's, they will need sales engineer to answer these complicated questions. Now, the third point is the number of SaaS companies that have grown between 2010 to 2020, like a ton. Now, for take any problem that you want to solve, there are probably at least 10 SaaS products and you just gave an example of what you went through. I'm sure you at least looked at 10 companies before you brought it down to like 3. There are more than 10. In the thing that you were doing, I can easily find 25 companies doing the same thing, right? So now think about a seller trying to get the attention of you as a buyer. It has gotten so much difficult to get your attention as a buyer. So I now need more SDRs so that I can send more emails so that I can get the attention of the right people. So these 3 things, right? The zero interest rate policy, the complexity of the buying and selling process, and the noise that has created because of the number of competitors. I think these are the reasons why the buying process has been complicated. This is why people have added a lot of enabling, supporting roles into the rev organization. And that is what is causing the quota carrying percentage to come down to 10%.
Now, if Docket takes over, would you like to bring that percentage back to 30, or what will happen?
I think the only way for companies to operate at high GTM efficiency is by bringing it back to 30%. Forget Docket in the equation, right? Just think about how can companies operate at high GTM efficiency. The only way is we need more quota carrying reps. You cannot have enabling reps. You cannot increase the pricing a lot. Almost every company has already done that. If you look at the last 1 year, almost every company has increased their pricing. So they are like, a lot of companies have even lost their valuable customers because of the price increases that they have done. So that is not possible. Competition is not going to come down. The tech savviness of the people, of the buyers, that is not going to come down. So what is the way in which you can bring GTM efficiency? The only way is by bringing AI into the equation and making sure that your quota carrying reps, the percentage is increasing, and you handle more and more enabling functions taken care by the AI so that the core AE can focus on selling. That in that equation, Docket is certainly a part of that equation. Like there are automated SDR solutions that are out there that are trying to, help SDRs to be more productive. That way you can reduce the number of SDRs at the top. That'll work. There are
That space
automated
seems very
marketing.
crowded. Yeah.
It's
I
very
mean,
crowded. Yes.
yeah, that's where you get into these Apollo and Clay, and there's
Exactly.
dozens and dozens of tools for
That's it.
personalization at scale with AI now. That's a crowded category. But you're in the sales engineering.
Yes. I'm in a better spot than that for sure. The SDR category is very, very complicated and very crowded. But my point is, companies that are optimizing the ad campaigns, companies that are helping to write the ad copies and content and demand generation things, the outbound SDRing things, Docket, virtual sales engineer, the ones that will help eventually the post-sales motion. So AI is going to have a significant impact on across the funnel. And as AI makes its inroad to these enterprises, the enabling functions will come down. The number of people that you need to enable the sales or marketing process will come down. I know that it'll sound scary. A lot of people are now thinking, do I lose my job? You will all get transitioned into other more valuable things that you can do. If you are not a sales engineer, you will become an account executive and make even more money that way, and you will have better career progression. If you're not an SDR, you will become an account executive or go become a customer success person. There are so many ways in which you will be repurposed into a better role. But I think that's the only way to get back to efficiency. And Docket is, I'm very sure that we have a big role to play in that motion, which is the exciting part for me, right? If I have to let go of a role at ZoomInfo from a C-level to go do a startup, obviously I see the opportunity and it's very exciting for me.
The way that I like to think about this, when there are usually, I think, 2 types of reactions from marketers, at least when faced with the looming prospects of AI. One is that this is going to replace me, and I'm threatened by this. And the other is that this is the most empowering tool that I've ever seen, and this is going to allow me to become a ninja, and this is going to allow me to work 5 times more productively, and I'll be able to add 5 times more value to my company because I'm going to enable them to move faster. So if I was able to, let's just say as an SDR, if I was able to send out maybe 100 highly personalized emails a week, and now I can send out 10,000, just think how much more pipeline I can create for my company and how much value I can create using these tools. Therefore, if I can create this value, I should be able to share in that value creation, and I'm much more valuable. That's the way I encourage people in marketing teams to think about it, is the empowering aspects, not so much the displacement aspect. But there is no doubt that it is going to displace a lot of people who are at the lower end of the value chain and doing a lot of manual, repetitive type of
Yeah.
tasks.
Yeah, just like any other technology, right? Every other major technology has displaced people from one to the other. Humans are extremely good at, adapting and moving and doing additional things that are even more valuable. So I think I
Mhm.
fully agree with your point that think of it as an empowering angle. And that's the right way to think about any new technology that's coming up.
Yeah. Now, a quick word from our sponsor. The Paris Talks Marketing Show is affiliated with Hop Online, a performance marketing agency focused on high growth SaaS and other recurring revenue based companies. If you like the flow of this conversation, you may want to consider jumping on a discovery call with someone at Hop Online. A discovery call is similar to my podcast interviews in a lot of ways. We'll get to know your business goals, competitive landscape, and marketing needs. And you'll almost certainly come away with some new ideas for how to accelerate your customer and revenue growth. If you're interested, go to hop.online, that's hop, H-O-P .online, and book a discovery call with one of our strategists today. Now, back to the episode. So I'd like to now shift over to the data itself. So Docket is able to come in, and you mentioned that you can get a company, an enterprise company, live in one day, like in
Yeah.
5 hours. And you're going to be ingesting data from all sorts of scattered sources. This is not just about plugging into the CRM API, but you've got Slack, you've got call recordings, you've got internal documentation. You might have training materials spread across documents, presentations, maybe webinars and video. And I'm probably just touching the tip of the iceberg here. So the first thing I imagine that you do is you have to go in and audit the company's knowledge base for sales. And you have to figure out the entire kind of universe of where relevant data lives so that we can attach to it and pull it in. Can you walk me through that process? Because I am really shocked at the speed at which you can turn this on for a company, for a big company who's got
Yeah.
so much vast mountains of data spread across really messy tech stack.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. Docket is very, very turnkey. And even for public companies who are our customers, we have been able to get them onboarded within 4 to 5 hours. And the reason, so the enabling factor here is the underlying technology, which is the large language models, which is an unsupervised AI model. Did you have a question?
I was just going to say that must be an amazing selling point for Docket that we can get you
It is.
live in a day. If we
Yeah,
sign today, you're going to be live 2 days from now.
it is. It is. In fact, I wrote about this on my LinkedIn too. I think one of the underappreciated facts of AI is how much it is going to make onboarding easier, right?
Yeah.
So I'll explain that and then come to Docket, and I want to touch on everything else you mentioned. See,
Okay.
today you want to move from one product to another. What is the biggest problem? It is the data migration. What structure of one data versus structure of the other application. These are slightly different. So you need to do a bunch of manual labor in between. See, LLMs are going to solve all of these problems because you can simply, not all, I wouldn't say it's a holy grail, it's a magic wand, not that way, but you can take it, you can push a ton of unstructured data into the system, and the system has the ability to now structure out that data and then edit it to this new structure and then push it very quickly in. This also means that the switching costs will reduce. So SaaS companies will have to work harder to retain their customers because to move from like pipe drive to keep is going to be faster than it is today, right? The reason why Docket is able to enable or like go on onboard a customer within a couple of hours is because there is no manual administration task that you need to go through. Historically, if you think about a content piece, you have to bring in, you have to, put it into a right folder structure, you have to add a right tag into it, you have to label it, you have to categorize it, you have to give it, like there's a lot of things that you need to do for that content to be ready to be consumed. With LLM, what that enables us to do is there's absolutely zero tagging in the system. When you put a source into the system, we know what is the kind of content that you're putting in. Is it a competitive intel versus is it like an objection handling? Is it a feature thing? The system understands that ground up. Every bit of source, depending on the kind of source that we are ingesting, we do a data processing. It's an automated data processing upfront. I'll give an example. Slack. Slack is one of the most noisiest of the sources that are out there. When we
Oh, yeah.
ingest Slack channel of a customer, it's going to bring in a ton of different kinds of data. We are talking about weather in Austin or like a recent baseball game. It's all being discussed in that particular Slack channel. When we ingest, we have the ability to automatically weed out all these irrelevant data, and we score all the questions that are coming in, all the answers that are coming in, who are the people who are answering these questions, how good they are. All of these get individual scores, and all of these elements have to get to a composite score of X or above before it gets into our system. Once it gets into the system, it's already curated, you don't have to worry about it. Now, the other thing about for our system to go live, you don't need to hit 100% of your data into the system. Imagine you have a very siloed data. It's in, like, let's say 20 sources. You don't have to bring in all the 20 sources for us to start. Because what is happening when it comes to the buyer questioning is there's a clear Pareto principle. 20% of your questions keep coming up 80% of the time. So you don't need to ingest all the 20 sources to get to the most often asked questions or the ones that are really key for you to make the sell. Imagine a competitive intel question. A competitive intel question we get from sales enablement for sure. We get it from knowledge base in some cases. We get from your website. We get from your case study. We get from your Slack. We get from all of your call recordings. So the same competitive intel, how is Apollo different from ZoomInfo? We get from like 6 sources. Now imagine that you are not connecting the 6th source. We are still fine because we already have that data, right? So that is another reason why we are able to move very fast. And if we ingest the top,
enough, it's good enough. It's good enough is good enough. So if you've got, when the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule is working, it's time to switch it on, right? Because you're going to hit all the main questions, the competitive intel, I don't know, maybe product positioning, pricing questions,
handling, data security compliances, value propositions, ROI justifications. These are all going to come through very, very quickly. And as the companies, in our experience, as the companies are bigger and bigger as we onboard, their sophistication of the data is actually higher. So ZoomInfo is one of our customers, and ZoomInfo has all of this data in a it's one of the best run revenue organizations in the world. So, these guys are extremely good when it comes to all the data being already there, right? So we just ingest that very quickly and the system will learn. It'll take a few hours for the system to ingest and be ready, and you are off for testing. Now, there are other things you could do to make it better that could take you another hour, let's say, or another 30 minutes and things like that. But not all of that are optional in the system. So yeah, we can onboard fast. And I think that in the AI world, you are going to start seeing a lot more products that are turnkey rather than that takes like 6 months of implementation.
Yeah. And as you said a few minutes ago, that's going to put major pressure on the churn rates of SaaS companies when switching costs go down so much. If I can switch CRMs in 2 days, like switching a CRMs is a nightmare to even think about. If you're on HubSpot and you wanted to switch over to Salesforce or vice versa, God. But if that can happen like a flip of a switch, that's going to make these companies have to really work a lot harder on the retention side, but that's a different problem. One other quick thought that just came up, and I've got to ask you this. Is this also naturally going to be applicable for customer support as well? Because you've ingested a lot of that same data that people that are going to, today I'm asking it in an objection handling context, but then after I'm a customer, 3 months later, I'm going to ask a similar question in a support related context, but you've got the same answer for me.
Yeah. So Docket, one of the reasons why we call ourselves as a sales engineer, a virtual sales engineer, let's say, is because there are so many organizations today where the sales engineers are actually supporting post-sales also. So we think of Docket as a GTM specific engine, not just for sales. I'll give another example. One of the changes that we see in the 2023-2024 era for companies like a Databricks or a Snowflake or somebody like that, or any company, is to land first and expand. So Databricks or these guys, these are landing at like 50K deals in a big enterprise, right? They don't care. 25K, 50K, let's just land. And then instead of spending all the time during the pre-sales time using a sales engineer, once they are in, their foot is in the door, now they are bringing in the sales engineers and they are expanding the $50,000 deal to $5 million deal. over the next 2-3 years. And there might be one or a group of sales engineers that are working with this upsell team that is helping to do this upsell. So that's going to be a bigger and more used tactic, so that otherwise, it's just not handling. If you ask for like a 500K upfront, the deals are just not happening right now. The scrutiny is just so high. But if you're doing like a 50K deal and then expanding, that's easier. So we think of Docket as a full GTM thing. It could be used for sales, success, onboarding, implementation, and also support. Again, we don't want to compete with all the support systems and things like that. So instead of trying to build out support specific use cases, we are simply going to integrate with them. But our focus will be in the complex, like the sales, post-sales, virtual sales engineer kind of paradigms.
Yeah. I think that, Arjun, it was you that mentioned to me that Klarna, that this company Klarna famously reported a couple of weeks ago that they replaced 2/3 of their customer support tickets with AI.
Yeah.
And it's something like 600
700 agents.
700 agents. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's another massively disruptive space. But I hear you. I mean, first go deep before you go wide, land, and then expand. And LTV matters more than ACV. Yes. I mean, if you sacrifice ACV for LTV, that's usually the right decision to make.
Yeah,
I would say, right? So land it at a reasonable ACV where you've got a buying committee that has a budget. You're going to win the deal. You're going to win it on an AI sales engineer. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to expand it to customer success.
Yeah.
And maybe support.
Yeah. And that's also positive for the net retention rate, right? If you look at the 2023, 2024, if you look at one metric that has been hit the highest, that is the NRR. You look at even the best companies, the NRR has come down by like 30 percentage points. Not 30%, but 30 percentage points. Companies that had like 141 in their NRR today is running at 111. 111 is not bad, but for a company that was at 141, I'm talking public companies, right? The Snowflakes of the world, which were at, maybe it's Snowflake. They had like 171% or something like that as the NRR, which was insane. Now they are at 140, 137, whatever, right? So the NRR is like the single metric that has shown the pressure from the market the most. And then if you are like landing and expanding, then the NRR metrics will actually look way better than it is right now.
Yeah. Well, let's quickly define that for the audience. Net recurring revenue, NRR. Can you help us understand how that's calculated?
So the way to think about it is, let's say that you are getting $100 today from all of your customers. You will lose some of them. Hopefully, if you are a decent company, then you are not churning more than 10%. If you're churning a lot more than 10, 15%, it's actually bad. It also depends on whether you're an SMB focused company. If you're SMB, then your churn is probably 20%, and that's okay. So that is, you have $100, you're going to lose, let's say $10. Now the point is, out of the rest of the customers who haven't churned, how much can you upsell so that you go over the 100%? So imagine you lost $10 from your existing customers, but you managed to get $20 from the rest of the customers. Then your net NRR will be 110. Because you lost 10, you gained 20, you are at 110. So this is very critical. Basically, NRR makes sure that you do not have a leaky bucket.
Yeah. So it's measuring the degree to which your upsells revenue can compensate for your churn. If upsell equals churn, then you're right at 100%, right? If upsell exceeds churn, then you're over 100%. And that's where you want to be.
Exactly. So the best run companies have very good NRRs, right? I think the best run companies have more than 170. Which is like, that also means that they are deep enterprise sell and things like that, because enterprises, the NRR typically tends to be much higher than the SMB. If you have a good mix of SMB and mid-market and enterprise, then you can target like 120 as a really good NRR. If you are mostly enterprise, then you start at like 120 and north of 120. So 120 is considered good. Today, I think even 105, 110 is considered good just because of the world we have out there.
Yeah, sure. What this is going to do is you're going to have a demo. Initially, it's going to be more of a generic demo that's done by AI instead of a sales engineer, which allows you to keep your sales engineering costs in check.
Yeah.
And then the next step. So today we've got generic demos, but tomorrow it's going to be custom demos by AI. And can you help us paint that picture
Yeah.
of how can AI do a custom demo and field
Yeah.
specific questions? What's that going to look like?
Yeah, no, it feels very utopian, but it is not. See, there's one of the things that I realized after starting Docket is how much we are underestimating the speed at which the models are growing, right? Whatever I thought would take like 2 years happened over 6 months, like being brutally honest. So that opened up my horizons in terms of what is possible in the immediate future with a product like Docket. So today I think of Docket as an agent. It's like a virtual sales engineer who is joining your company. Today, it has the ability to answer questions. Now, think about the logical progression of it, right? Today, you can chat, ask question, and get an answer. So the accuracy is very, very high today with the system, right? We have deployed it to many, many customers. We have never heard like this answer is completely wrong. We have heard like the answer is not as specific as it should be in a few cases, but we have never heard it's totally wrong, right? So it rarely happens. I'm not saying it will never happen. It's like humans can make mistakes, AI can also make mistakes. So that's the first part. Now, the next logical step is, hey, can you give a voice to this AI? Where in that case, what would happen is you are interacting with the AI and you can ask questions. And does the system have the ability to get interrupted in 800 milliseconds or less? If I am talking with you, if you say something, then I'll immediately go silent, right? That's roughly 500 milliseconds, 600 milliseconds, something like that. So if it is within that 800 milliseconds or so, then it's human-like. So can I get interrupted or can AI get interrupted in 800 milliseconds? One. Now I stop and then you start. That is roughly 1.5 seconds or low. It has to be less than 1.5 seconds. Typically, it is less than a second when it is humans. But if it is below 1.5 seconds, you typically think that it's a human-like conversation. So if you hit like 1.2 seconds in the ability to process and start answering back, you're good. Both of these are achievable today. In fact, I have a running prototype that I have a video of within Docket where we have put the voice on top of the technology. We have tried in the video, you can see, we have tried level best to confuse the system. We have interrupted it from left, right, and center and tried to ask questions. The system is like, yeah, I got the question, and it'll just start answering the question.
So you'd be like the rudest possible buyer, always interrupting and
tried my level best to be
all
one.
over the place.
Yes. And the system still gets. So that's the second logical step, right? And the third logical step is, hey, can I teach my system to understand a product? That is actually possible. Again, to what level is another question, right? There are obviously varying levels. Can I teach the system to go through the happy paths? That is possible. Happy paths meaning click here to create an audience, put the filters, click on the next, name the audience, do it, right? If you simply look at a mixed panel data or amplitude data that are out there are thousands and thousands of happy path executions. You can simply look at that and look at the clicks and figure out, oh, this is the happy path, this is the happy path. See, the top 5 features are top 5 happy paths. Enough and more data out there. AI can learn that so quickly, right? So now you teach AI that. For that, by the way, we still probably need to wait for GPT-5 because we need a little bit more reasoning for the system to get there. But if you combine the ability to understand the product, combine the voice, combine the knowledge underneath, these 3 levels is what a sales engineer is at the end of the day. And we are not too far from there, honestly. And I think Docket will get there rather quickly.
Happy path. I love that. So in that future, not only do you have a voice and maybe there's a face too, perhaps with some kind of avatar, but then someone's able to actually point and click and walk you through a screen sharing demo where I could ask a question. Wait, no, can you show me that feature again? Can you zoom in a little bit closer? Now let's take the example of my company. Can you put my company in? And so it's going to be able to click and type and scroll and respond like an agent, not just a generative AI like what we have today, but it's an agent who's capable of carrying out actual tasks.
Exactly. It'll be able to carry out all of that. Yeah, absolutely. And then it'll also be able to, so you can do like a headless Chrome, which is what this AI is going to share. So it'll log into the product through what you call as a headless Chrome and start sharing the screen. There's a Zoom bot you can enable. You can do everything. The basic of the technology exists today. It needs its own tuning. It needs fine tuning. It needs to understand the product and you need to have like a good product experience. so that the implementation is not super heavy around it. I think all of this would happen if companies are. It is interesting that how so very few people are actively thinking about it. I'm happy we are thinking about it. We are doing prototype around it. We are doing hackathons around it. I think we are pretty close. I think we'll get there in foreseeable future. You and I will be doing another podcast not too distant from now about these details.
Yeah. Or maybe I'll just be interviewing your AI avatar and who has
Sure.
all the answers anyway, and we'll give.
Oh
Wow,
my
yeah.
God.
I also imagine, and I realize we've.
Go
No,
ahead. Go
I
ahead.
hope you'll still make an hour for me a year from now for the next podcast. But I can also imagine that AI could also be doing the buying in addition to doing the selling. Where if I'm out there searching for call recording software and I'm overwhelmed by the choices, I'm going to instruct my AI agent who's going to be not necessarily buying, but they'll do the researching and maybe the short listing on my behalf. And now most of the products are self-serve product-led growth. So my agent will be able to actually not just go to the websites, but my agent will be able to create free accounts, free trial
Yeah.
accounts across maybe a dozen SaaS tools and get into those tools, click around and really understand what can and can't be done and report back to me and say, you know what? These are the three where they have legitimate multi-touch attribution features. These
Yeah.
are the three guys that you want to talk to. And
Yeah.
again, that just accelerates that cycle of the educated buyer because now I have an AI agent who's researching on my behalf and making recommendations. And I'm coming even into that first, I don't know, demo call with your AI assistant, even
Yeah.
more educated. So is there a future where AI is selling to AI?
So I have to again, phase it out a little bit, right? What you mentioned is like a super advanced AI. I would even call it like an AGI, artificial general intelligence, because the AI that I mentioned only has to learn one product, right? That's far easier. Only one product, meaning that model is learning that product and then showing it to all the customers. It's pretty much the same product. What you are seeing is your AI is going and learning about a bunch of products and then being able to play around with all of that, right? So that goes into the general intelligence category than artificial intelligence category. So it's more advanced. But to your that whole paradigm of AI helping in the buying process, there's a lot that you can do there. Like identifying the top vendors, I would call it like the buying process. He'll be able to take you through a significant portion of the buying process. He'll be able to research on the potential vendors. It can go to G2 trust radiuses of the world and figure out who are the top companies. It has the ability to go look at which are the top features that I should look for. It'll come back to you and say, hey, out of these 10 features, which are the ones that are important to you? You say, okay, here are the 5 that are important to. Because today you don't even know that. When you start with something, you need to do like 5 days of research before you know which are the categories that I should look for, right? Because people don't know what to ask the vendors. And that will be taken care by the agent. Now, at the next level, you can even imagine that the agent will actually go on a call, ask these discovery questions, and then come back to you with the answers. So you have a well researched, scored list of vendors, top 5, let's say, from the world. And from there, you kind of take over, right? So these are all differing levels of reasoning. What you mentioned is probably the ultimate level of reasoning where it has the ability to even go in, play around with the products, and then come back and say, here you go, this is your best pick.
Yeah. But actually having really tested in free trials, it sounds sci-fi, but I think it will come. And I can even imagine that a discovery call between my AI buying agent and your AI sales engineer, and it
Yeah,
might happen in like in 1 minute, just because they don't need to speak to each
yeah,
other.
yeah,
It can
yeah.
just basically, I'm going to upload all my questions, and then in 10 seconds,
Instant.
your AI sales engineer is going to give me the answers, and then
Yeah.
I'm on my way.
Yeah, people are even talking about how an agent will hire another agent to do their job and then pay this second agent through Bitcoin. Like that way even the payment will be done. That's happening through Bitcoin. I haven't really thought through that level yet, honestly. So maybe there is a world like that. We also don't know when the whole AGI is going to happen. And that's kind of like people have different definitions of AGI. But yeah, it's going to be like a very different world 1 year, 2 year, 5 years down the line.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, Arjun, this has been fantastic. I remember that you had a hard stop 5 minutes ago, and I've kept you way over here. It's fascinating. I definitely want to have you back. And
Sure.
just tell the audience where can they best find you and connect with you and learn more about Docket AI.
Yeah. So to find me, LinkedIn is the best place. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. Feel free to like and follow the posts. I try to put in time to get my posts out there. So I'd appreciate it actually. Then to find more about Docket, I would appreciate you reaching out docketai.com. Docketai.com is the website, or just reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you have, if you're facing the challenges of enabling your sellers, I would love to talk to you, help, show the product. And if there is a fit, would love to have Docker deployed for you.
That's awesome. All right, everybody. Just to clarify, it's not Docket.ai, it's docketai.com. And check out Arjun on LinkedIn. Arjun Pillai, 30,000 followers. That's impressive. Keep up the great
Thank you.
work. And can't wait to see what's coming next for Docket.
Thank you, Paris. Really appreciate it. This was awesome. I had a blast.
Me too. Thanks. Another great episode in the books. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get notified when future episodes drop, be sure to subscribe to Paris Talks Marketing on your favorite podcast player. And to learn more about our growth marketing agency, visit hop.online. That's hop, H-O-P.online. Have a great day.